All right. Welcome to this Back to Basics session. This is going to be just a really quick conversation about how to gather student feedback and why we need to. If you have questions at any point, stop me. This is a really simple thing. I just created an infographic. We're going to have kind of go over that quickly. Otherwise, it's just a conversation, and you guys can either tell horror stories or I'll tell my horror stories or share some really good moments because feedback can also make your whole day. And we'll go from there. Does anybody want to jump in with things that they know they need to talk about right away? Uh,
No, I don't.
all right, let's get started. Hi, Tam. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, you guys can see it now. Let me move some things out of the way because it always does that. All right. So we're just talking quickly about, how to gather feedback and why you need to. And the most important thing, in fact, I'm going to stop sharing before you guys have probably already read it now because you're all so quick. Does anybody have a specific or scary or just a wow moment with feedback that has changed the trajectory of their career? Or is it just something that you look at because you have to at the end of the term? Like, what do you guys do with feedback right now, today?
Well, I tell you, I personally don't. We use the idea scores, and
Hmm.
quite frankly, I don't think it generates the kind of level of information you need. I prefer the narrative. So, the last assignment in all of my class, I asked the students to do some self reflection and
Mm.
then to ask them specifically to share what could we have done better. And I think people give you more articulated information when they're giving you a narrative description. And I just did that at the end of one of my courses. I got the most fantastic feedback for the
Uh-huh.
student, you know, in
That's
terms of,
good.
heck, they loved you, of course.
Well, that's nice to hear too, Diane. I never am one to shy away from praise. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to talk about how they're using feedback right now?
So when I like for the evaluations that we get in nursing, they give the scores, and then I look at the what they say in the narrative because that does give more information. Once you get past the anger, because you can always tell this one student who just is like, when you look at the quantitative scores, it's the one who was no one person who's unhappy.
Yep.
Okay. And
There's always
then
going to be one.
it's always gonna be one. But then once you get past even the anger in the comments, you know, they took 1 point off of my assignment and blah 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 blah. I try to then look at, you need to take that with a glass of wine. But once you can get past that, like there have been I made a lot of changes like to the way I do lectures, to the some of the information that I'm providing. I'm learning that I'm a boomer person, and I'm lecturing to Gen Xers, and that they only want the least amount of information. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
they don't.
Ramona, that you brought up a huge point there, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to tap on that for a second. We are all way older than our students. And I mean, we've always been older than our students, right? That goes without saying. But there's been a massive shift in the last 10 years. And it's not just me. It's not just that I am a late Gen Xer. I mean,
Hmm.
these guys are just way different. And the reasoning behind that is in large part, well, there's a couple of things. Number one, the way that we teach now is so incredibly different at the lower grades, right? And so they learn differently than they used to learn. And there's a whole bunch of information that we could go into there, but we're not going to this during this quick little workshop. But that it's fascinating to look at how they used to teach, how they teach now, and what that's creating in the upper higher education levels. And then the other piece of the puzzle is that kids today are exposed to, by the time they're 5 years old, they've been exposed to as many facts as we used to get in the first, I think I read it was the first 10 years of life or something ridiculous. I mean, they're just getting their little heads are being packed full with information left, right, and center. They do not have time for the long, drawn out 3 hour narrative lecture, blah, 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 blah. To them, that's like Charlie Brown teaching. Who's listening to them? Nobody. They want short, quick bullets. They want quick information. If you can give it to them in a way that reflects what you're trying to do, then you're all set. You'll get the feedback you want. If you can't do that, reach out to the folks at City because we know how to help, right? I can
Okay.
speak for Laura when I say that we are here. We're here to help. Couple of other. Did anybody else want to chat before I just go through the quick visual that I did? Okay, let me jump in and share that real quick, really quickly. Excuse my horrible grammar there for a minute. Okay, so the reasons we want to get feedback obviously is so that we can improve, right? And also so that maybe we can figure out why they were so mad at us to begin with. I love getting feedback, whether I think it's going to be good or bad, although I really, really hate when I first started teaching, it was painful because I would go to we used to do it on paper and they would have the students fill out a piece of paper and we'd have to go to the student advising office and find our folder and go through and open the folder and read the reviews. And I stood there and sometimes I felt like I was just going to cry because they were just vicious and they are vicious. That's just how it, because in their minds, I'm paying a lot of money for this degree. I should get this and I should get that. And they look at us as consumers, which isn't always how it was. We used to be much more revered, by the way. So that's changed too. One of the first things you can do to avoid that 2x4 across the forehead is find out how you're doing before the end of the class. And to do that, I like to use early detection. And I do quick little minute papers. I'll ask them at the end of the class to just do a 3x5 note card. Put down one thing that you didn't understand, one thing that's still foggy, one thing that's still muddy. Just a sentence. I'm not asking them to write a book, but by doing that, and sometimes you can switch it up too and ask them something that they really liked about the class if you need a little confidence boost. So if you have, what was the best thing you learned in this particular lecture? So that, you just get a chance to see if you're going in the right direction. Using something like Poll Everywhere or clickers, we do have clickers in the city office. You can do real-time audience responses that way. And that keeps, a lot of times people won't raise their hand to save their soul. And I've never understood that. I mean, if you're in a class, don't you want to engage? Don't you want to participate? And then I started doing workshops with faculty and realized that it's the same, whether it's across the board, because people, generally speaking, they're either shy, multitasking, or just there because they have to be. And nothing makes it less fun to jump in and say, "Hey, I know the answer." And we don't have a lot of, I'm dating myself from Welcome Back, Kotter. We don't have a lot of Horseshacks in the room, generally speaking. Exit slips and comment boxes are really good tools to use on the way out the door. Just one thing to keep, one thing to tweak. What can I do differently next time? Putting those things in there at the end of every lecture makes it so that you have information with which you can start your second lecture, your next lecture going in, because you want to keep. And the other thing that it does is it creates a feedback pipeline so that if you have feedback for them too, it makes it easier for you to give them that feedback. It creates an open dialogue where they're not afraid, where they're not afraid of bringing up something to you that might hurt your feelings, or God forbid, worse yet, make it so you give them a bad grade. Because at the end of the day, we know that these guys are focused mostly on their grades, right? Once we get it past the each and every lecture time, you can start thinking about doing a mid-semester scan. I just do a stoplight survey. I keep start and stop, so I keep doing this. I start doing this that I wasn't doing before, and then I stop doing something that's really annoying to them. I know one group I had at one point, I was sending out announcements because I wanted to be engaged. Wanted them to know that I was paying attention to them. So I was sending them announcements, two, three times a day. Um, they were a little annoyed. They did not want to hear from me quite that much. They let me know in the mid-block survey. And so I got a really valuable piece of information and I stopped spamming them. And we had a lovely class. And you know what? At the end of the course, I did not get any negative reviews saying that the professor spammed me. So that saved my bacon. Bacon, that's what it saved. And then finally, when you get towards, there's a couple of other things you can do that are up on the info. You do anonymous surveys. I love anonymous surveys because nothing will make a student speak out more than the idea that they can say it anonymously and without repercussion. If you're giving them a survey and making them do it in class and hand it to you, they're going to say only the good stuff. But if you put something on Canvas, using the quiz function in Canvas or using RedCap or Google Forms, whatever you want, you can use Microsoft Forms. A million survey agents out there, all of them offering something you can do anonymously. It's worth it. It might hurt, but it's worth it because they'll tell you exactly what they think. The other thing is, as I was talking in a small group before, I always, always, always throw out the top 10% and the bottom 10% of any group of surveys I get. Because some of them are going to be trying to blow sunshine up my bum, and some of them are going to be trying to, they're going to be trying to flay my skin from my body with their words because they hate me so much. Neither of those two are helpful for my educational process or for making my course better. So automatically, I take what's in the middle. Last thing I like to think about is at the end of the course, I like to close the loop. And to that end, when I get the midterm survey, if I do something in the middle of the term, I will go in the very next time I have class with them, or I'll send them an email and I'll go over the points that they brought up one by one if I have to, if there's a lot of them. As I've gone on over the years, I've gotten better and I get fewer and fewer and fewer complaints about things that I do unless I get a group of sometimes the students too will band together. So that's something we can talk about too. But going back to what I was saying, the most important thing is to close that loop. And if there's something you can do about anything they've brought up, then do it. And then tell them that you're doing it or that you have already done it. Nothing makes them feel better about an interaction than having some resolution, some closure. It's just like when you go up to the bank and you're slamming your hand on the table and you're rah, 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 rah. If the banker just turns around and walks away from you without acknowledging your issue and giving you some sort of response, you're probably going to change banks. Same thing for them, right? They don't want to be ignored. And so the best thing we can do is just take 5 minutes and say, hey, I got those surveys back. I wanted to tell you they were anonymous. I don't know who said what, but I'm doing this about that. And if I can't do something, I'm telling them why. I can't fix this one, but I am going to bring it up to the curriculum committee next time we meet because I think that's a really good point and it deserves discussion. By doing that, you automatically elevate the students into the center and they feel better and they're less likely to go after you in final reviews because they see you as on your side. You want to always set things up so that you're gaining information to make the university better and yourself better. Because by doing that, we're going to make the students better. So it all flows into the same waterway. And obviously, the last thing I always like to tell people in situations where feedback is concerned, you know, courses are never one and done. You have to be iterating them. Diane, you did a great job with this. You took me by surprise actually, because you added in some new scenarios into an exercise that we've been doing over the last couple of years, and it was really cool to see what the students did with that new information in that exercise. And so iteration is the key, even if the information isn't or is exactly the same, because let's face it, I mean, I think Jeff, you were talking about accounting. I don't think accounting principles change all that much from year to year, do they? Or do they?
They do not.
They do not. So, and the same thing with some, formulas and ratios and so that stuff doesn't change. But that doesn't mean that your delivery shouldn't change from year to year to year. Because as we were talking about in the beginning, we have new students, we have new audiences, we're new. We have new energy about different things. And so the most important thing is to bring that energy into the classroom as you're going through and delivering that information to the students. Because I guarantee you, if you bring them energy, they will bring you positive feedback. At the end of the day, the last thing I'm going to say is just no matter what you do, just remember that the students are in the center of it. And that if we take what they say, we can't always give them what they want. And we always have to protect our own, we want to make sure that we're not bending ourselves into pretzels to address their issues. But that doesn't mean we can't listen to those issues through feedback. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, issues, wants, needs, desires? Ramona, you were about to chime in with something?
Yeah, I really like this, all three ideals. Does this, do we see this as interfering with the end of the university generated end of the course feedback? How does that work with?
This doesn't have to go into that at all. This is just
Mhm.
for your personal knowledge and for your personal, so that you can change your patterns as you need to. You may get your survey back and they're all happy, you don't need to change a thing. And
Okay.
that's great. But almost always somebody has something and you're like, huh, I guess we can work that in. I can tweak that. They want to target this information a little bit more than that information, or they wish that the lights were on a dimmer switch. I don't know. I mean, silly little things sometimes, but if it makes their lives easier and takes their stress away, let's do it. Because it doesn't hurt and it might help. And that's
And
sort of
then
my philosophy of life. If as long you can do anything you want to except hurt another person, right? So as long as we're going through looking for ways to help people, it can't be wrong.
I always say that, the response that you get back from the end of the course surveys is not going to help the students who's given so they're not going to see it. So that's why I like, kind of this. I do
Absolutely.
like
And
this idea.
if you need help building in the quizzes or anything or creating the polls, we can help you at City. Laura and I are definitely down, and I'm sure Bronca and Lynette they're not here today, but anybody you need help with, we can all help you with all of this.
I do need some help with poll everywhere, so I am going to be reaching out because I have tried to use it and I never seem to get it right. So yes, I
Okay.
will. Mhm.
All right. Yeah. And I know that with for example, with Diane, I sit in and run the exercise with her and it's a lot of fun. So, I'm happy to do that for you too if that makes your life easier.
Okay. Mhm.
So, lots of ways to work around things. All right. Laura, you raised your hand. What's up?
Oh, I was just going to add that uh, it's also a good way to test the waters if you're wanting to experiment with a new tool, say like an AI augmented assignment, and you want to see how well it either works for the assignment or for students. You could do a quick feedback check after the assignment is done. To get some information on how well that worked and what you may need to change in the future. So it's also really good for quick checks and
Yep.
low to no stakes sort of feedback so that you don't have to change your grading methods at all, right? You could just, like Peg suggested, get some quick responses. And, it helps support that sort of slow and low approach to integrating a new tool like AI in the mix, right? Because then you get real time information from students as to what's working, what's not, is how well is this going to work for us, and shows that you're trying to learn together and see how well this thing can be, suited to your teaching and your course. That's all I wanted to add.
Thanks, Laura. No, that's great. That's great. A great addition. And it also made me think too that I think Ramona, you brought up the end of the year evals. one of the things that I hear a lot from faculty is that they want to get those scores up. They want to keep, they want to keep improving. And the best way to do that is to either work with an instructional designer or make sure you're getting feedback and adjusting to it. And if you really want to know the truth, it's best to do both of those things because we can actually go in and help you to, make connections that you might not think of making because you're a subject matter expert, but you're not necessarily an education expert. You've been teaching for, I know when I was teaching on a regular basis, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about teaching. I was a pretty good teacher. And then I went and actually studied learning theory and studied, all these different ideas that we teach at City. And I was like, huh, I really didn't know a whole lot. And I was teaching instinctively. And so, one of the things I really stress with people is, just work with somebody even if you think you're fine, work with somebody just to see what other perspectives you can get, because oftentimes they'll see things that you don't because you're just so close to the material. And I always have somebody look at my stuff before I put it out. Always, just because I'm too close to it. I don't see it the way I assume that because I built it, it must be right, but that's not always true. I make mistakes too. So,
Well, it's funny that you say that because I'm a good nurse. You can ask anybody that's ever been under my care. I am a good nurse,
yeah.
and I was taught to be a good nurse, but I wasn't taught to teach nursing. Now I know nursing, and I teach it from what I know, but I was not taught to teach. And so, and I think I know what I'm doing. And teaching students is different than teaching patients, and
Yep.
this has sometimes been a very humbling experience and also sometimes a very angering experience as you're going through. But yeah, I'm liking what you're saying, so I will probably be reaching out more,
Good.
especially now that I'm full time full time for real in the college now.
Oh, good for you.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Nice. Laura,
Mhm.
did you want to chime in?
Oh yeah, I was just going to quickly say, sorry, I don't mean to be taking over your workshop here, but and Ramona, that's such an excellent point. I remember when I started teaching 20 years ago, and the program director handed me a syllabus and a textbook and told me to go teach it. That's
Yep.
the only instruction I got, and was fresh out of graduate school, and so and I didn't have these resources, or at least I didn't think I did at the time. So like, and with all these disruptions that have happened over the last few years with COVID and now AI, right? It, like you say, Ramona, it is really humbling, right? Because not only are we learning to teach on our own mainly, but also we're having to deal with these major disruptions to teaching and learning and adapt as we go. And it's very challenging. I mean, I think we all know that to manage that, right? So
It
it's a really good point.
it is, and it's also you can't revisit it enough because and Laura, thank you again for bringing it up because I think it's so important to remember that you got to step back and breathe and realize that not only are you experts in your field, but oh, by the way, you're supposed to, the students expect you to be expert teachers as well. And I don't care how long you've been doing it. I mean, yeah, everybody gets their style eventually, right? But especially when as we get these new faculty on and bring the younger people up and coming, they're going to need all the support that you guys can give them. So we want to share as much as we can with all you guys too, so that the younger faculty coming up can turn to you and say, that they've got it going on. So yeah, it's teaching the teacher we're all teaching each other constantly, which that's why I love Rush. I mean, there's never a day that goes by that I don't learn something from a faculty member that I'm like, of course. How did I not know that? So I love the openness that we have at Rush for this kind of stuff.
No, I have to go next meeting.
Yep,
So
it's
thank you.
1:30, it's 2:31, gotta go. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and a beautiful holiday season. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody.